Ladies and gentlemen, hey, yo, fellas, welcome into the That One Dude. A couple of dudes, but that one dude for week 7. So what is that one dude? I hope you all had a lovely week, by the way. Hope you all got some time to chill out, relax, max well cool with yourself, with the people you care about, or your invisible friend or your pet rock. I don't really care. Hope you had a good time. Today, we're going to be looking at each position, and we're going to find somebody that's a leverage play. And on a 10-game slate, just like last week, it's difficult to find leverage plays, but I actually really like the leverage plays, especially at running back and wide receiver today. And then we look at a 1% owned flyer play. Normally, that guy's at the wide receiver position just because there's more options to choose from, and those guys naturally are going to hit more than a 1% owned running back or a 1% owned quarterback, right? So this week, we usually start at the quarterback position. This week, we're going to start with running back, push the quarterback to the end because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm trying to play Matthew Stafford. I'm trying to play Patrick Mahomes this week. I'm not trying to find that much leverage most weeks at the quarterback position, let alone a week where there's not that many great pickings. So we'll save the quarterbacks and push them to the end of the show here and talk about the more flair, like this fucking shirt, the sexy things, right? And this is for GPPs because we're not playing cash. I don't know what the fuck is cash, right? This is for GPPs. We're trying to find the leverage plays. You probably shouldn't play all these guys in the same lineup. It's trying to find the one piece that makes your lineup different. And depending on how many people are in your contest will determine how many spots you have to get different in. So, subscribe button. There it is. Consider doing that at any point during this video. You might think you're subscribed. Double check to secure it because it does allow us to continue to do this. So, let's start now with the running back position. Now, the man that I like this week, and there's not that many cheap options. He's in the $5,000 price range. Ooh, everybody's quickly going to Sal. Come on. Everybody knows that Miles Sanders is a sneaky play this week. Yeah, he's not that sneaky, and he's not the guy I'm talking about here. Miles Sanders, I currently have projecting out for close to double-digit ownership, right? I have 8%. I'm not shocked to see it get up to 10 to 12% by the end of the week. No. This guy is actually cheaper than Miles Sanders, but yet remains in the 5K range. And if Miles Sanders is 5,100, that means this guy must be 5K flat, and that means this guy this week must be J.D. McKissic. J.D. McKissic, I currently have projected for just 2% ownership on a 10-game slate, and maybe that comes up by a percentage point or two, but I don't expect it to come up by much if Antonio Gibson plays. So 2% ownership for J.D. McKissic. I have him for 10.4 fantasy points. And if you want to look at my tweet, follow me over there if you want to get some nice tweets over on Twitter and some good times and some good vibes. You can see right here, I basically have Miles Sanders for about a point more than J.D. McKissic, but Sanders is coming in with 4 times as much ownership, and he's technically $100, but more expensive. So I think McKissic is nice leverage. And you have McKissic coming off of a game where Antonio Gibson was clearly banged up. We don't even know if Antonio Gibson is going to play this week. Every week he's questionable. And if he does play, he's more and more limited. Last week, in a game where they trailed against Kansas City for most of the game, you see the highest snaps of the season for J.D. McKissic, 60%. Hate to break it to you, Washington football fans, but this week you get a 10-point underdog Washington football team, which yet again is going to scream J.D. McKissic game flow. And the interesting thing is that McKissic had 10 targets, 8 receptions, and 110 total yards in that game. He put up a season-high 19 fantasy points. That is now 3 times this year in 6 starts that he scored 17 or more fantasy points, J.D. McKissic. So in games where they're trailing, you're getting the overall usage. You're getting 6 target games. You're getting 5 reception games for 50 yards and a touchdown, right? And you're getting the volume from last week. So I'm here scratching my head a little bit. Maybe he gets up to 4 to 5% owned, maybe, and even then, still a leverage play, obviously. But I'm scratching my head like, why is this guy so low owned? The answer is wide receivers, the exact same price point. Vante Parker, Hunter Renfro's there, and people think he's safer. Does he have the same ceiling? Maybe. I would say no. And then there's also, at the running back position, the man, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, who somebody asked me on Twitter, and it was a good question. Like, okay, well, Miles Sanders, why is he coming up with this much ownership? Well, he's dirt cheap himself at 5,100. He's coming off of a week where he played 93% of the snaps, the most he's seen on the year. It's a 10-game slate, so naturally there's less options to choose from in terms of just overall plays, but also value plays. And then, oh yeah, the other one is the squeaky wheel narrative. The last time we had a squeaky wheel narrative, Robert Woods went off for 150 yards, right? Now we're getting a squeaky wheel narrative because this team's only averaging 13 running back carries a game in Philadelphia, and now they're saying they want to run the ball more and give Miles Sanders the ball more. So we'll see if that happens, but that's why most of the ownership is not coming on to J.D. McKissic, even though he just went for a 10-target, 100-plus yard game. So McKissic is going to be the value, and now I have a prop taken on this. It's over on Prize Picks as it comes up on the screen. It is just over 10 fantasy points for J.D. McKissic. Again, I have him for over 10 fantasy points, and based on the game script, I really like this situation for J.D. McKissic. McKissic, who so far this season, in games where they have been expected to trail and they end up trailing in those games, you're seeing McKissic right now in basically 3 out of 5 games. Week 1, he didn't play all that much, and 3 out of 5 games this year, he has hit over this number, and this game script as 10-point underdogs screams out that they will be playing from behind yet again. Not even factoring in the fact that Antonio Gibson, if he plays, is likely to be limited. So you can take the over 10 fantasy points over on Prize Picks. Here's the thing. You get a free bet up to $100 if you're a first-time user. All you do is go prizepicks.com prizepicks.com. Type it in. There you go. You sign up, takes about 30 seconds, and the big thing, use the code SAL. My name, simple, right? And what do? No matter what happens on your first bet, if you put $50 in, you'll get $50. Whether you win or lose that bet, an extra $50, all the way up to $100. So you can check it out down below. It's a limited time offer, so just use the code SAL, simple, S-A-L. You get a free bet. Why would you not use it? I like McKissic here over 10 fantasy points. Now, next up, we slide into the wide receiver position, and this is another wide receiver at the exact same price point as J.D. McKissic that I actually like here, so he's going to be a value. And you quickly remember $5,000. Who's in the $5,000 range? Who's $5,000 flat? That is right, Vante Parker. Vante Parker, he's expected to play this week. He was very close last week. He's expected to play, so hopefully by the time this video that comes out, he's not ruled out, so I don't look like a jabroni here. But he's expected to play this week, and he's only $5,000. I'm shocked by this price point for an ex-alpha receiver. Will Fuller is still not expected to play, and they're force-feeding Jalen Waddle on the outside when that's clearly not the role that he's supposed to have. And he looked good in the last game, but Vante Parker is the clear X on this team. And I know Tua is back now, and it's not Jacoby Brissett who was targeting Vante Parker in a lot of these games. But even with Tua out there, Vante Parker has had success. You can just look at week 1 when he had 4 catches, 81 yards, and 7 targets. Parker, in the 4 games that he has now played, has seen at least 77% of the snaps, and he has seen 7, 9, 7, and 9 targets. And he has some red zone targets, a touchdown in the last game that he played. You're getting good usage out of Vante Parker, who is the wide receiver 1 on this team. I know Waddle's getting a lot of usage, but if you're talking about ex-alpha role, it's Vante Parker. And for comparison reasons from my tweet, you can see right here on the screen, but not just this player and Hollywood Brown on the screen right now. Hollywood Brown projected out for 12.6 fantasy points. I personally have Vante Parker for 12.8. I have Vante Parker coming in at 3% ownership to Hollywood Brown being more than double that at 7%. So Parker's more expensive, projecting out for less fantasy points, but it's somehow more owned. Why is that? Well, Vante Parker has been hurt, banged up, and he's playing with Tua, and he's not playing with Lamar as flashy. He hasn't had the massive blow-up games that you've seen in prime time like Hollywood Brown has had. But there's also other guys you can compare him to. Hunter Renfrow right now is $200 cheaper, same exact projection for me, coming in with 8% ownership, and I would say has a far lower ceiling than Vante Parker. That just seems obvious for the roles that they play. And it can go on and on with different wide receivers in that range. I think Vante Parker is one of the best value plays on the entire slate, one of the best leverage plays on the entire slate, and one of the best overall plays on the entire slate right now. I mean, the usage is clearly there for him in a game script where they're 2.5-point underdogs with a 23 implied team total themselves. So nice team total, underdog, so expected to throw more. And this isn't a team that's running the ball all that much. So Tua, who's coming off of a game where he had to throw 40 plus times, it felt like he was throwing 40 plus times in the first half, might have to do that same exact thing again. Now, as of this recording, the yardage props are not yet posted, probably because they want to make sure that he starts for any of the Miami Dolphins guys, because obviously Vante Parker will affect Jalen Waddle and McKissic. So they're not on Prize Picks right now. They're not on Underdog Fantasy right now, but I want the yardage props, right? I want the yardage props over receptions. Unless you see them hang a 3.5 number out there for receptions, then hammer that. Vante Parker has at least 4 receptions in all 4 of his games so far this year, and he's gone over what I would expect a yardage number to be somewhere in the mid-40s. He's had 81, 42, 42, and 77 yards. So if you see a number somewhere out there in the low to mid-40s, in a game where I expect him to throw a lot more with Tua, who I believe, and I think many others would agree at least, Jacoby Brissett is worse than Tua, so this is a better spot for efficiency. I like Parker's overs. You can secure them on Underdog. Use the code SAL. Code SAL everywhere. You get your free money. $10 free over on Underdog, up to $100 free bet over on Prize Picks. I'm going to be trailing. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be trailing and looking closely, hawking the Vante Parker overs in terms of receptions maybe, but mainly yards. So there's the 2 sexy positions, although we still have another wide receiver at the 1% owned. Hit the like button as that bad boy pops up. And now we talk about tight ends. And I'll be completely honest with you. Tight end this week is lovely. It's great. You have Ricky Seals-Jones, Dallas Goedert, assuming that he does play. Tyler Higbee, if you want to put him in your stacks. You can pay all the way up for Kelsey and Darren Waller at fair price points, right? There's all these guys this week that look good. And that's probably the player pool that I'll be choosing from the most. And all those guys are going to pick up ownership. Now, they're not all going to pick up 15% like Travis Kelsey, but for the most part, they'll be like 8 to 10% owned. So tight end this week, trying to punt on it, trying to find leverage. I'm just trying to put these guys in my stacks. I'm fine getting an 8 to 10% owned tight end. If you wanted to punt though, right? If you wanted to punt, you can punt all the way down to $2,500, where there are 2 plays. There's Durham Smythe, who doesn't look as good. We just talked about Vante Parker, his teammate, returning because Parker's returning. But there's also Ryan Griffin. And Ryan Griffin's an interesting name to call out. I have Ryan Griffin for 6 fantasy points. Not great, but he's only $2,500 and he'll only be 1% owned. So can you find the end zone is what you're hoping for here for massive leverage. And now you have the Jets coming off the bye and they get New England, which is nowhere near a good matchup. And you saw that last time for Zach Wilson, but hopefully with an extended rest, they can get something going. And the big thing, if you're looking at Ryan Griffin, you're saying, Sal, why are you recommending this guy? He hasn't scored over 2 22 fantasy points in 3 weeks. He hasn't seen more than 1 reception in a game. So far he's had 5 total receptions and only 8 receptions on the year. Sal, why do you like this guy? Well, for the first 4 games of the season, he was operating as a tight end too. And then what you saw in week 5 was he spiked up to 93, and these are the underlying trailing indicator stats, right? 93% of the snaps in week 5 before the bye. He ends up running 26 routes, which was 10 more than he's seen in any other week. And for reference, 63% of the snaps was the most snaps he played. Tyler Kroft didn't play that game, and I don't think he's going to play this game, so you're going to be getting Ryan Griffin out there for, if he runs 25 routes at this point, got 2 targets in the game. You've seen Zach Wilson rely on tight ends a little bit this year, not a ton, but a little bit, mainly the slot middle of the field. So you're mainly hoping for a touchdown here. It's trying to find a leverage punt play because what does he do at 2,500? He lets you spend up elsewhere for comparison reasons. Robert Tonyan right now, I only have for not even a point more. Not even a point more, but he's $1,000 more at 4 times the ownership. Tonyan, you can see on the screen right now. Similar things can be said about Anthony Fursker, who's $600 more, and I only have him for 0.8 more points, and he's going to be 3% owned to Ryan Griffin's 1% owned. So if your build this week is to try and punt tight end, you can't afford $3,700 Ricky Seals-Jones. You want to just punt to the bottom this week so you can get the extra $1,000 to $2,000 to spend up at wide receiver, running back, and quarterback. Go for it. Go for it with Ryan Griffin if you're looking to do so. That would be the punt play this week. Now let's talk about the 1% owned flyer play. And there's no props out there right now for Ryan Griffin because why the fuck would there be? But let's talk about the 1% owned flyer play, and then we'll talk about the quarterback. This 1% owned flyer play I really like this week because it'll either boom or bust completely for us, but that's the point of a 1% owned guy. But even more so because of a player being traded on his team. Zach Ertz was traded away from the Philadelphia, I almost said 76ers, a basketball star, and Eagles, but it's going to be Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins with no more 2 tight end sets, with Jack Stoll being the backup there, and now primarily operating in 3 wide receiver sets for the Eagles. It means more Quez Watkins on the field. And getting the guy who ran a 4.35, right, 4.35 speed, getting him on the field more probably bodes well for this team. So what you're seeing out of Quez Watkins is they're trailing in games, so he has been running routes, but what you're seeing so far this year is 10 routes, 14 routes, but then it spikes up in games they're trailing against Dallas and Kansas City, 27-27. Game against Carolina, right, 29 routes. But then he only runs 19 routes against Tampa, so what you're seeing out of this guy is boomer bust potential, right? 5 fantasy points, 14, 7, 6, 8, 9. But now there's no Zach Ertz. Now I feel more confident with the 25 routes that he's going to get. In a game this week with a nice overall environment where they're going to be trailing against Vegas, at least that's how it projects out on paper. For comparison reasons here, look, I like Rashad Bateman this week. I do. He looks like a great play. He's a punt play, though. You don't expect 20 fantasy points or 10 out of him, right? You're hoping for that, but that's not a projection on him. I currently have Quez Watkins for 9 fantasy points. I have Rashad Bateman for 8.5. So I have Quez Watkins projecting out for more. Now he's more expensive by a couple $100, but he's 1% owned, and I'm not shocked to see Rashad Bateman be 6, 7% owned in a lot of contests this week. Similar things can be said for Van Jefferson, who I have projecting out for 8.4 points, who I think will be around 3 or 4% owned this week, to Quez Watkins 1%. So Quez Watkins is going to not see a role change, but a usage change this week. At least that's what I'm projecting here, as they go more 3 wide receiver sets and less 2 tight end sets. 25% of the route, or 25 routes run maybe for Quez Watkins this week is the goal. This is a guy who has played in the last 2 weeks, by the way, 84% and 79% of the snaps. They want him out there on the field as a fast, dynamic playmaker who has this massive big play upside. So Quez Watkins for me is in play. His over-under on receiving yards is 41.5, which I don't really like because Watkins can easily have a 3-catch, 38-yard game and a touchdown, and that's paying off for us for 13 fantasy points at this price and this overall ownership, and then he doesn't hit his prop. So I do like the over 9 fantasy points more as that comes up. You can get that on Prize Picks. Again, the code SAL, you get a free bet up to $100 Rooskies. $100 bills, y'all. Check it out. Use the code SAL, free bet. And now we close it up with the boring quarterback position, but you're going to stay tuned here because there is a little bit of upside here, especially because it's going to allow you to correlate a low-owned stack because we've already talked about one of his wide receivers today. So who is it? Is it Jalen Hurts or is it Tua? Well, Jalen Hurts is not going to be low owned this week. I hate to break it to you. I have him at 8% ownership right now. The answer is going to be Tua. Tua so far this week who's going to look decent. We already talked about it with Vante Parker. 23 implied team total. They're underdogs, so you expect him to throw a little bit more. Tua coming off of a game where he had to throw a shit ton, and it worked out for him. He had to throw 47 times in that game against Jacksonville. So they're completely fine with him unloading the cannon and throwing a bunch, right? Now, maybe they don't want to do that long term, but I still expect him to throw close to 40 times. He had a 70% completion percentage, over 300 yards. He scored 22.4 fantasy points. Now, that was like almost best case scenario. He throws 47 times, and he's barely getting you to 22 points. Now, if you're talking about DraftKings, he did go over 25 with the 300-yard bonus. So we know that there's some upside there, and now he gets Vante Parker back. So Tua, for me, if you're looking for a cheap quarterback, if you're looking to get different, mainly in large field GPPs, which the worst fucking contest out there is the Millie Maker. If you're somebody watching this right now, you dirty, dirty guy or girl, if you're watching this right now, you dirty fella, you are probably going to lose your money. playing that contest. But if you want to try and get different elsewhere in there, I do think that Tua is at least viable in those types of contests. I have him for about 19. What do I have him at? I have him at 19.2 fantasy points at 2% owned. Now, for comparison reasons, there's really no comparison here. Like, I could compare him to Derek Carr, who's $500 more, but Derek Carr looks like a better play. He's projecting out for like 21 fantasy points, but he's 6% owned. So is it worth the extra 3 times the ownership? Probably not, but Tua over Daniel Jones for me this week. I just like the stacks. I like the matchup more so. I like the way that it profiles out from a game environment of being a slight underdog, but a good team total, so should be able to move the ball. Vante Parker would be my number 1 stacking option. Also, Jalen Waddle also in play there, of course. So Tua would be the option for me. And in 2 games this year where Tua started, 17 fantasy points against, at that time, very tough to start your year against Bill Belichick, who's spending all offseason in the last 2 weeks when he's got his final roster, prepping against you, specifically Tua. And then you get him playing in Jacksonville looking good. So now another nice matchup here in terms of what this is going to be against Atlanta. So Tua would be my option there. You can take his over 252.5 passing yards, which I've taken on both PrizePicks and Underdog. They pop up on the screen. You can take those wherever you have access to it. Check them out on both those sites. Underdog, you get the free $10. PrizePicks, you get the free bet up to $100. It's the same number, 252. So if you want to take it on both, smack them around, or just take it on one, whatever you want to do, check it out. It's all linked down below. There you go. That one, dude, for week 7. Each position, the 1% Quez Watkins flyer play. Fingers crossed. We let our shoulders lean a little bit in this fly shirt, right? Do a little bit of a rain dance for the 1% on fly to come through for us. You rub the thick-ass pumpkin for good luck. You spin the Packers helmet here for some good luck, even though we don't got any of them. You do whatever you got to do for the good luck this week to win the dollar Rooskies because, hey, skill definitely is involved. You set yourself up by the skill to get lucky, but you still need to get lucky. So, hey, you out there right now, lady, the fella, get lucky this week. I appreciate you all a ton, and get lucky in more ways than one if you have to. But, hey, appreciate you all the time. Thank you for tuning into this video. Before you go, subscribe button. There it is. If you made it all the way through, triple check that you subscribed and secure that button for you. I'll see you beautiful people all in the next one live stream on Sunday. Be there or be as square as it gets.